Hey, winner! Welcome to Red Hot Mindset. I want you to know I appreciate you. Today's guest knows what disappointment and setback look like. She faced both these things multiple times as she embarked on a journey of entrepreneurship. And it wasn't until after multiple trial and errors that she found something that stuck. Her passion and business intersected, and her story of defeat and triumph proves that our setbacks can become our comebacks if we don't quit. Her determination and grit brought her to the place she is now, a place where she helps others improve their overall health and fitness and wellness. And I'm guessing now that she's found what she was called to do, it doesn't even really feel like a job to her. Dawn Hopkins is the founder and president of Inspiritus Yoga, Holistic Wellness and Training Centers, an international yoga school and wellness service provider with 3 training centers. She has been helping people improve their health and wellness since 2002 when she co purchased a women's fitness franchise. Her love of fitness led her to get certified as a personal trainer and mindful eating coach. With hard work, their franchise grew into one of the most successful in Arizona. Dawn feels honored and blessed to help people find healing, growth, and transformation through various modalities of yoga, holistic wellness programs, mindful eating, yoga teacher training, and continued education. Since she discovered her life's calling, she hasn't worked a day in her life. Dawn lives in Chandler, Arizona with her husband. Their blended family includes 3 daughters, a son, and a granddaughter. I'm excited for you to hear her story, so let's step into the fire. Hey, Dawn, thank you so much for joining me on Red Hot Mindset today. I'm so excited to share your story with the audience.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Gabe. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And before we get started, I want to get to know you a little bit better. I want my listeners to get to know you. So, do you mind just sharing a little bit about you and your family?
Sure. Yeah. I have a family, a blended family of four, 2 older daughters, and then a son and a daughter that are mine biologically. And then I have a grandbaby.
Mm.
Yeah, she's awesome. And we're running the age gamut here. So our oldest is 35, and then all the way down to my son who is 17 and a senior in high school. And then our grandbaby is 6 years old. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun with our blended family situation coming together. We're all different ages, but everybody gets along really well, and we're very blessed in that way for sure.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And I know today we're going to be talking about your journey into entrepreneurship and kind of what your struggle victory stories are in there. Can you briefly share just a little bit of your story of how you actually entered becoming an entrepreneur?
Oh, sure, absolutely. It's always by necessity, it seems, in one way, shape, or form. But I was um, in the marketing industry, and I was a marketing director. And our company was actually purchased, and they were going to be moving all of the marketing activities to Omaha, Nebraska, and I was not going to Omaha, Nebraska. And so I decided to, just do some freelance work on my own. And so I started this little marketing company called Dynamark Consulting, and I ended up working for a lot of the people that I worked for originally. They ended up becoming my clients. And while I was doing that, my brother approached me about ownership in a women's fitness franchise. And he and his wife had purchased a women's gym in Wisconsin. They were loving it. And he's like, Dawn, you love marketing. You know how to run a business. You love helping people be healthy and well. You might want to check this out. And so I did with another former employee. We used to work together and we were friends. And I said, hey, you interested in owning a women's gym? And we ended up buying one and opening our doors in January of 2002. And so that's where it really all kind of started. I mean, I think the freelance work was probably my entry point, but it was like those marketing skills and strategies that I had done in my previous life in corporate America, that I used to help us build our business. And we became one of the largest women's fitness franchise. It was Curves for Women. It was very
Oh,
popular at the
yeah.
time. But yeah, we became one of the biggest in the state very quickly, outgrew our space and had to expand. And it was a really fun journey. But that was my entry point into entrepreneurship, and then really into the fitness world. So.
Oh, I love that. So, did you have any fears or hesitations as you were making the decision to purchase a franchise? Because that's a little different than going out on your own and having your own kind of LLC or small business out of a house or out of a small office. So, what were some of the thoughts that you had?
Yeah. Well, I think that, it was really encouraging to see the the fact that these gyms were becoming so popular at the time, and they were popping up everywhere. I don't know if you remember that time frame at all, but
Mm-hmm.
they were showing up all over the place. And the fact that, we were part of a larger organization, and they were doing marketing, and they were, supporting these franchises, I think made it a little less scary, a little less daunting, to step out into that world, and, to own a small business. Plus, we had a really strong community. So we got to know all of the other uh, owners in the area, and we used to meet with them regularly, share ideas, talk through some of the challenges we were having. We became like a little support group for each other. But we learned from each other, and we grew together. And so I think that was very different than what ended up coming later, when I decided to own a business on my own, not a part of a franchise. It definitely made it easier. But the downside of that was that, when the housing market kind of fell apart in 2008, businesses like ours were seriously impacted by that. People weren't spending money. They considered their gym memberships to be, discretionary, which I don't believe that to be. I think it's such an important integral part of our health and wellness. But
Hmm.
people were just canceling their memberships left and right, and we were in the process of selling, trying to um, go into like different go down different paths. My partner wanted to do more creative stuff, and I had fallen in love with yoga and wanted to pursue that full time. And we just couldn't give it away, literally. So it was a rough time. But other than that, like up until that point in time, we did very well. And it was really awesome learning experience for sure. And I think to own a franchise before, you go off on your own, like it just is a little, you're more bolstered. You have a little bit more support, and you have other people who can help you, and direct you, and guide you, and things like that. So it was a great entry point for me. But yeah, there were some tough lessons along the way, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I can bet. I bet that's true. And I remember that time that you're talking
Hmm.
about when everything
Hmm.
crashed. And I do remember curves because I went there once with my mom. My mom was an
Oh,
avid curves person for a while.
yeah.
And yeah, that is so interesting. And so when that happened, when you stopped that business, did you have any point of frustration and wanting to kind of give up? Or did you kind of bounce right back? And how did this idea of starting your own wellness studio come?
Yeah, so it kind of overlapped. So while I owned Curves, I had already stuck my foot into the yoga world. And so I was already a trained teacher. I was leading classes. I was helping assist with teacher trainings. And I knew that it was something that it just had such a profound effect on me, that I wanted to do that, full time. And so what ended up happening is I actually launched my original business. My first business was the Living Well retreats. And so I was offering yoga retreats and wellness retreats and women's retreats, overlapping my ownership of Curves. And so the very first retreat I ever did was the weekend after we closed our doors at Curves. And so I was in the process of like formulating that while while we were exiting Curves. And so it overlapped. Um, but it was not something I thought was sustainable financially initially, because you can only do so many retreats a year. And so I was teaching classes, and I was teaching privates and working with private clients and things like that. And like I said, assisting at trainings. And it was over time, I was like, I want to do this more regularly, not just in a retreat format. I want to, have a place where people can come and have that same retreat experience, but, in their daily lives.
Mm.
And so that's where we had the idea that, okay, well, why don't we open a studio? So this is a different business partner. Um, and we decided to open a wellness. It was actually a nonprofit wellness ministry, and so we were doing everything was from a Christ-centered perspective at the time, where we were offering Christ-centered yoga classes, different wellness programs, retreats, workshops, and it was a 501(c)(3). And unfortunately, that particular model wasn't sustainable either. I mean, it might have been had she or I had a lot of experience in fundraising, but that was what kind of killed us. Like, we didn't have that expertise, and it's really hard to sustain a 501(c)(3) if you don't have money coming in. And so that, and then my partner abandoned the business. So we were about 2.5 years in. We actually had 8 months left on our lease, and she abandoned the business. And so that was scary, and that was very eye-opening. And that was a point in time where I was not sure I was going to continue down this entrepreneurial path anymore. I wasn't sure what direction I was going to go in. And God has an amazing way of opening doors at just the right time. And that's kind of how it all played out. So,
Yeah, I love that. So it'll be interesting to hear how much time was between the ministry nonprofit to you having a new business. But in that time frame, when you're saying I wasn't sure I was going to keep going, what were some of the mindsets that you might have had to break, and some of the thoughts that you were having?
yeah. Um, well, at the time that my business fell apart, my marriage had also fallen apart.
Mm.
So I was trying to support two children, um, on very little income. I was actually living off of the proceeds from the sale of our home.
Mm.
And so that was kind of what was floating me during that time frame. And the thoughts that were going through my head is like, gosh, I feel like I am called to this work. I'm so passionate about it. I just, when you're doing something that is uniquely you, that you were destined for and you feel purposed for, and then to see it kind of just blow up, you're like, whoa, wait a second, did I get this wrong? Did I misread the signs that this is what I was supposed to do with my life? Or am I just in the wrong circumstances with the wrong business partner, and I'm going to come out of this okay? And so those are the things that kind of go through, like, oh wow, did I get this wrong? Am I not supposed to pursue this full time? And without a shadow of a doubt, it became very clear very quickly afterward that yes, I was supposed to continue to pursue that. And just it was a matter of kind of reformulating it, and restructuring things and getting out from underneath brick and mortar leaps, because that was what was stifling my ability to really grow. Because you're trying to pay for all the overhead, and you're paying for other teachers, and you're paying for insurance, and you can't pay yourself. Like, there's not much left.
Mhm.
And so what ended up happening is I ended up meeting with one of the owners of Joyful Yoga. She and I were really good friends. We had been through some trainings together. We opened our businesses around the same time, and I remember sitting down with her, just like literally, it was like cry on her shoulder and tell her like, oh my gosh, I just don't know what I'm going to do.
Mhm.
And she's like, well, how can we help you? And I was like, oh, I could operate out of your studio, you know? And so I just was like, you guys interested in, bringing my students over and maybe me doing my teacher training programs and other programs out of Joyful Yoga? And she's like, absolutely, we would love to support you in that. And like to this day, I could not have, it could not be more grateful to Charlotte and Anita for opening their doors to me, my students, my trainees, and my programs. And it's been a really beautiful journey. And that was kind of like the answer to prayer. It was like, oh, now I have a place I can operate out of without having to pay for monthly, rent. And then I can take the time I need to restructure my programs and my offerings. Um, and and that's what I did. So, and then I relaunched as Inspiritus Yoga a few years later.
So cool.
So,
And I
yeah.
want to talk a little bit about what you're doing now, but I
Hmm.
want to have you look back on that journey. And what did you how do you feel like God prepared you for what you have now? Because I think it's always like seasons and it's preparation that we don't see. Like looking back, hindsight's 2020.
Hmm.
What did you take from that?
Yeah. Part of what happened, I think, is I never had the self confidence to believe I could do it alone.
Mhm.
And I think I always felt I needed to have a partner and that I wasn't enough by myself, you know? Um, and what I ended up doing while I was in the partnership that fell apart was I kind of rolled over on all these different ideas I had and all of the ways in which I wanted to bring this, vision to life. It became more about her vision and less about mine. And and I didn't stand up for myself in that. And I think that I didn't have the self-confidence at the time to really say, no, this is the vision that I had for this. And we can collaborate and that's great. But to let the core values of the business shift and everything kind of shift, I think that it had to fall apart to come
Mm.
back together. I think I lost myself. I lost what the original vision for the business was, and it wasn't even recognizable to what I had envisioned by the end.
Right.
And so I think just trusting myself and that God gave me these gifts and he gave me this purpose to fulfill. um and I had to kind of, it was trusting God with my finances, it was trusting God with my decisions, it was trusting God with the future of this business, and believing that I can do this alone,
Mhm.
um, with obviously, I have the support of other people and I have a space to utilize and things like that. But no longer was it going to be a business partnership where I lost focus of what the business was going to look like. And so, and letting myself off the hook for that, because I beat myself up for that for a while.
Mm.
But being able to let yourself off the hook and say, okay, well, I understand why I did that, and I'm going to give myself some grace here and dust myself off and stand back up again, and rise up and then do it the way it was originally meant to be, and the vision that God had originally given to me. So it was really a kind of a, I had to go through my own internal journey, coming into myself more and trusting myself more, and believing that I was really called to do this work, and believing what a difference it was making in people's lives, and letting that be my fuel to move forward.
If you are interested in hearing these stories I'm sharing more in depth, you need to pick up a copy of the Lemonade Stand 2 anthology. This series is a powerful testimony of others willing to step up and share their stories for emotional growth and inspiration. I had the privilege to be a part of Book 2, which is a collective of narratives of true, everyday heroes who show you how to stand in your power, find the courage to seek truth, and reveal your authentic self. I wrote the Running for My Life chapter because we need to have more open conversations about mental health. Too many young souls are falling culprits to depression or suicide in this noisy world. I decided it was time to open up and share my story. I dealt with severe depression and anxiety in early adulthood, and through personal development, mentorship, and my deep faith, I was able to take back my life and come off all medications. It's hard to be vulnerable in this area that is usually filled with much shame and guilt, and I didn't want to end up back in that place by drawing out all the emotions I knew would come out as I wrote, but I knew it was time. It was time to share the story I've hidden for years in an effort to help and support anyone else who may be dealing with negative thoughts or feelings that are spiraling them down into a dark place. There is hope and light in the midst of darkness. Are you in the midst of a struggle of your own? Pick up a copy of this book to find encouragement, inspiration, and motivation to move forward into your breakthrough. Our stories are meant to be shared. Head to www.redhotmindset.com to snag your signed copy of the Lemonade Stand 2.
Very cool. So as you were doing this work and working on the inner self and figuring out where God wanted you, how did you feel like you knew that it was him saying, go to this direction? Did you have any pinpoints of, yes, this is what he wants. It's peace, it's whatever it is.
Yeah, that's a litmus test for me always is even if I'm afraid, and it is scary. It's scary to step out on in your business and to I don't know, to even admit like, okay, I failed here. And I don't really see them as failures. I see them as lessons. But
Mhm.
okay, so I have these
Okay.
huge lessons from this business not working out. And I now have this additional wisdom and insight that I can utilize and offer. Um, but I think what happened was just there were confirmations along the way, like joyful opening their doors to me. My husband, God gave him to me in the midst of all of this, and he was one of my yoga students. It's actually part of my story that I wrote about in Lemonade Legend. But he and I had been friends for years, and our relationship started to change. And he's like, "There's no way you are not going to do this work. I will do whatever it takes to support you and make sure that this works."
Mm.
And so but that underlying peace in the midst of the storm, like all these things were happening. There were so many unknowns. And then yet there was this kind of peace in the midst of it, that peace that transcends understanding, in the midst of it all. Um, and then, just sign after sign after sign, just reaffirmed that this was the right path.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like for me, it's peace too. When I'm
Mhm.
praying or trying to come up with a decision, and oh man, decisions are hard, but I do feel like if I have peace about it, it's probably right. But
Mhm.
it's like finding that. And can you just give me a sign? I want it right now. And sometimes it
Yeah.
takes years, right? It took you years of try it, fail, adjust. And I love how you call it not failures, they're lessons, because I think we can learn in the midst of our struggle and our failings and all that to know what to do and how to move forward and to be better and to do better. And I just think that's so cool. So it's interesting to me. You've done all the gamuts. You've worked in corporate. You went out on your own. You had a franchise. You had a brick and mortar own business. And now you're kind of in an online and in person space. So, how has that evolved? What does your business look like now?
Yeah. Um, I I offer some in studio classes and workshops and trainings and things, but um, we were already doing stuff online before COVID happened.
Mm.
So we were already positioned to be able to quick adjust to this new environment that we all find ourselves in. So that was such a blessing that we were already offering teacher training programs all over the country. We bring people to our programs from um, the all over the United States and Canada. I have two training centers in addition to the one I have here, one in Saskatchewan, Canada, and one in Detroit, Michigan. So I have two franchisees, basically licensees of my teacher training program that are running training centers there. And so we get people from all over. So we had been doing this for years, and suddenly we're like, okay, here we are. We can now, we're positioned to be able to offer things online. And offer the in-person stuff. So we have teacher training programs and continuing education programs for teachers. We offer workshops and yoga education programs for students who are interested in learning more and growing, in addition to yoga classes. But then I have private services where I do yoga therapy, private yoga lessons, different kinds of healing therapies, and Thai yoga massage. I'm a yoga therapist as well. And so I have a lot of different tools in my toolkit to help people with stress management or healing, or even just if they're interested in growing and learning more about yoga. That's something that we can provide. We were doing retreats pre-COVID, but I've actually done 3 now virtual retreats during COVID. In fact, I had a mindful eating and yoga retreat last weekend, and we had a really nice sized group of people who were all retreating virtually. It's just a strange new world that we're in, but luckily these programs that we offer are able to translate into that online environment and meet people where they are, and right now it's meeting people where they are virtually, but also meeting them where they're at in their yoga practice or in their spiritual life. I also teach Bible studies at Risen Savior Church. And so I've been doing that for a long time as part of their women's ministries. And so I just love to help support people in their faith journeys, but also in their own personal journeys. And yoga for me is such an integral part of that, because it's a place where you can embody your faith, and a place where you can embody your that those mind, heart, body, spirit connections in a way that helps you to be the very best version of yourself possible, and get quiet so that you can hear from God and know he's with you. And that to me it's transformational when you have those moments with God on your yoga mat, and you just to even know you're not alone, to know that God is with you.
So true. And I think it takes practice and intentionality to have those moments, to be quiet and to be still and to listen for him, not to like go out of body and whatnot, but to like go, here I am. I want to know what you want me to do and where you want me. And I just think that's so powerful. And what
Yeah.
you're essentially teaching to other women and men probably.
Mhm. And yeah, we do get some men. In fact, my husband, as you know, was one of my
Yeah,
students. But
I love that.
it's so cool. It's uh, one of the things that I love about Christ-centered yoga in general is that we have an opportunity to have this full body worship experience on our yoga mat, and so we're getting healthier, mind, heart, body, and spirit, but we're also able to really experience God in a different way because our whole entire self is dedicated to the practice, you know?
Mhm.
So it becomes this really beautiful and powerful way of experiencing God, of prayer, of worship, of meditation, and just a real embodiment of that experience.
Very cool. I love that. So,
Mm.
through all of this, and all of your experiences and the struggles that you've gone through, what do you think, if you could take away one lesson, because I'm sure you've learned many, but what would be one of the biggest or greatest lessons that you've learned?
Um, to let go and let God.
Mm.
I mean, that's just such, it just seems like it's so pithy. People say that all the time, but it's so true because I think when we try to do things our way or do them in our timing or and we try to control it, which I think there's one of the other differences gave from my last business iteration to where I'm at now. I was trying to do it. I was trying to do it instead of really allowing God
Mm.
to drive the bus, and where do you want this to go? How do you want this to look? And what is my role in it? And so, trusting God more and giving the steering wheel back to him, has been a huge um transformation for me from my last business iteration to now.
Yeah, that's huge. And I'm kind of one who likes to take control too. I have this need for the hand in the pot and, bringing on multiple roles when I need to or different things and just almost forgetting that no, it's not in my control completely. Like doing the actions is in my control, but I want God to have control because that's when we find the most fulfillment. It reminds me of Proverbs. I don't remember what exactly it is. Proverbs 16 9 9 16 something like that, but where it talks about we make our plans but God directs our steps. And it's so
Yeah.
true, we still need a plan, we need to do, he can't do anything with us if we're not in motion, but we need to allow him to direct our next step and where we're going to go. And it seems like that's what you did with this last business.
Yeah. And I think, holding fast to Jeremiah 29:11,
Mhm.
just, that God does have good plans and they're not to harm us, they're to give us hope in a future. And I think when I was feeling very discouraged when my business partnership blew up and I was left alone with this business and a lease and not knowing, where to go next or what to do,
Mhm.
it was like I had to keep coming back to that promise that it's all going to be all right, just trust in me and rededicate it to me, and I'll show you the path. I will establish your steps, like that verse in Proverbs tells us. And going, okay, you're the one in control. Um and that changes everything, because Gabe, like you said, if we're trying to have our hand in everything and control everything, sometimes we don't leave room for God or leave room for the Holy Spirit to move, and we're just running ahead of um God, and then we end up falling flat on our faces sometimes, right?
Oh yeah.
That being said, he's really good to pick us up and repurpose that. Nothing is ever wasted. All of those stumblings become lessons and blessings and opportunities to grow if we're looking for them and if we're staying connected.
So true. So true. And I love that he has so much grace and mercy for us and his mercies are renewed every morning for us. And we can never, we can never fail enough and we can never um be so far away that he won't come hold out his hand for us if we ask. And I just love that. So
Mhm.
so cool. So um as we wrap up, could you give my listeners one piece of advice for going after a dream with all they have? What advice would you give? And I know you just gave some, so that was awesome too. But any other specific things that you would want to share?
I'd say trust God, trust yourself, because he made you, and if he calls you to something, he will equip you, and carry it through to fruition. But don't allow, you know seeming failures, like we mentioned earlier, to derail you or discourage you. I think that sometimes, it takes those to help us to grow into um, who we need to be for when it will come together, if that makes any sense at all. But it's like these things carve out our character, and they carve out perseverance in us, and carve out Christ likeness in us, and those things. Like in James, it says, "Count it a blessing when you suffer trials," because God is teaching us perseverance, and he's doing his work in and through us so that we can look more like him. And so hang in there and know that those lessons are part of the process, and God will bring beauty from those ashes. In time, he always does, because nothing is ever wasted.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. So if listeners want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to find you?
Oh, sure. So my website is inspiritusyoga.com. So inspiritusyoga.com. And my contact information is all available on that page. But I'm also on Facebook, Inspiritus Yoga, and YouTube, and also Instagram, and under Inspiritus Yoga.
Awesome. And if anyone's interested in the online retreats, are those available on your website to see when the next one is?
Yes, and you just reminded me I need to update my website. I went, oh yeah, I haven't updated the retreats portion of that, but yes. And we just have some really fun stuff coming up. So if you go to even our training page, there's lots of workshops and things like that are open to both students and yoga teachers, or people who want to become yoga teachers. So there's a lot of, fun learning opportunities and workshops and things that we are offering.
Awesome. Well, Dawn, this has been really fun. I've really enjoyed hearing your story. I know listeners did too. So thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing with us.
Well, thank you for having me. And I just appreciate you for what you're doing with this podcast, and the ways in which you're sharing people's stories. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.